Hey guys, it's KOKOStern with Why You Should, and today's subject is how we treat games, specifically games that we expect to be one thing and are something very, very different. And the example that we're going to look at today is a game that I actually started playing very recently and finished up, which is Metro 2033. The reason I started playing this game because I heard really great reviews for Metro Last Light, which is the second installment in the series, and I've never actually played 2033. I heard that a couple of good things about it, but I overlooked it, and that is a big mistake because the game is really wonderful, and I'm really happy that I played through it and will now play Last Light as well as I get to it. So what I want to talk about today, and why are we taking Metro 2033? As I said, I just started playing it and talking to people about it, specifically, especially with Last Night now coming out, and a lot of people take this game in the wrong way, and a lot of people played through Metro 2033 just a little bit, and then they just stopped because it was too hard, or too weird, or too different from what they usually expect. Now, I want to go through a part of the actual game that doesn't have any shooting in it whatsoever. So it's an FPS, we're going to go through a part with no shooting whatsoever. And part of how you should treat this game is very different because it's not the usual, you go around and you just shoot a ton of enemies, go through a city like, maybe, I'm not even talking about the Call of Duties or the Battlefields, I'm talking about the storytelling FPS games such as the recent BioShock. You don't just go through and shoot everything. You have a purpose and you need to be careful with what you shoot. You don't have too many bullets. It's sort of a horror shooter in a way, but it's not really Resident Evil, and it's not really Dead Space in which you really need to scrounge up every single bullet. It can get to that stages, but it is very different, and it's an FPS, and those games are usually third-person, such as Resident Evil. Horror FPS games are usually third-person. They're first-person shooters. So we're just going to go through a short part in Metro. It's called Dead City. It's in Chapter 2. There are 7 chapters in the game. We're not going to spoil too much, but I am going to say that, let's hear, actually, the protagonist.
When we emerged into the ruins of Moscow, I felt both fear and sorrow. But after life underground, I also saw strange beauty in the dark skies and frozen landscape. So that's the Dead City, granted Bourbon. Welcome home, Artyom.
So I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction just so you know what the hell we're doing here. Metro 2033 takes place in the year 2033 after there was a nuclear war in the entire world. So it's in Russia as well, if you've heard from the thick Russian accent, which just adds to the atmosphere so much. Even that they speak English, it's such a thick Russian accent. So Russia has been bombarded with nuclear warheads, and so there's radiation everywhere. This is the first time that our protagonist, Artyom, is actually going up to Moscow. It happens in the metro stations beneath Moscow, which is the only place that has okay levels of radiation and people can actually live. People survive by going down into the metro stations. And we come up to the city, and this is with our current companion, which is Bourbon. We're just walking around with him for right now. We're not going to tell too much about the story. And first time, and let's see how our protagonist actually responds to coming outside. Choking, first thing, you need a gas mask. So I put it on, and I put on the watch because there's a filter, and there's not infinite time on that filter. Obviously, that's how gas mask works. So this is my friend Bourbon, and we meet a happy citizen.
Those crazy devils come to the surface almost every day, looking for scrap, ammo, anything they can dig out. Sometimes you find the dead ones frozen stiff, like snowmen in rags.
And another part of how the atmosphere is given here. As you can see, he tells us to basically look for scraps and maybe you'll have enough filters and ammo to survive another day. We have this pack here, and you actually just notice, you saw me pick up all the different ammunition. It's not just a pack that's search, take all items. You actually see the ammunition here, and you pick it up, and there's all kinds of different ammunition. We're not going to go in great detail into that.
Let's go.
But you just scrounge up areas. Now remember, I played this game, so I'm going to go through an area here. Bourbon tells us to look around and maybe we'll have enough ammo and filters to survive, like I said. So I'm going to go in here. Remember, I played this, so I know what I'm doing. And there's a trap that obviously killed me the first time I went through here. And that thing will just go on top of us and kill us very quickly. Notice another thing, that it's very dark, so I put on my flashlight. With my flashlight, I'm obviously visible, and there are elements of stealth, but I do need it to look to see because it's so dark in here. Now the flashlight obviously works on a battery, and I can put up the battery, and actually this is my universal charger, and I use it. This exists. I actually have, I believe I have an actual lighter that you have to press in order to operate, and we make sure it's fully charged so there's a strong light beam, and we come up on top of here. We're gonna see that mutant running away. We're not gonna shoot it right now. And I actually found the stash. There's there's arrows in here, another filter, and more types of bullets. So, as you can see, the city is obviously uninhabited because there's radiation here. Nobody can survive here for too long, and everything is ransacked. And it's just a really great atmosphere that's put out. Now, remember, I'm in a gas mask. So you can see at the bottoms of the screen there's actually cracks in the gas mask, and as I fight mutants or whatever, or other people, obviously you fight other people in the game as well, because even when nuclear warfare, people will still fight each other because people are horrible. And so if my gas mask gets too broken up, I can actually pick another gas mask that I found out, like say this gas mask. Right now, my gas mask is fine, but if it gets a little bit broken, I can pick up different ones and replace it, so that I can see better, because you can see there's actual cracks on my screen. And in addition, I'm not sure if you can really see it right now, but the entire screen actually gets fogged up with time. If I press T, you can see my clock, and I have about a minute or more, or two more, before the filter runs out and my character will automatically replace it. Now if you listen, you can hear me breathing, gasping for breath, and as the filter gets done, basically, you can hear him really struggling to breathe in proper air, and it's such a great atmosphere and puts such dread in what you're doing. This is a horror shooter in a way, but not entirely. It doesn't really run on fear, such as Resident Evil or Dead Space, where you're just terrified of moving. But it does have that claustrophobic feeling that you get from a gas mask, and it's done so well with the rasping breath, and as you have to, eventually my character will automatically replace the filter unless I do it myself. It's a really great atmospherical resource management mechanic in this game. So now Bourbon will kick down the door and we can move further. He's waiting for me.
We've got to reach the air shaft, which we'll use to get to Tri-Station. Then we go our separate ways, and you'll get my AK like I promised.
So we move out and take a look at the city. And you can see real fogging up on my actual mask. And now we'll actually get to see, this is the first time that we see the winged demons, as they're called. You see this thing, and he tells me immediately to hide.
Stay hidden.
If you meet the beast in the open, crawl into the nearest crevice, because you do not want to fight those things, those winged demons.
I call them bitches.
And it's just going to fly out. Now, I'm going to replace my filter very quickly, very soon. Because as you can see, my screen is so fogged up I can barely see anything. And my breath is very, very ragged. And now, automatically replace the filter. Gets a little less fogged up, which is just really nice. Welcome home, Artyom. As you can see, everything is completely ransacked and destroyed. I'm gonna jump on this car and sadly not make it. That's how I get separated from Bourbon. And we'll have to go around. And you can hear the Geiger counts as I reach the radiated puddles. Though it's not, I don't really have a Geiger counter, but you hear the sound that it makes because it's so familiar with radiation, and that's bad. You need to leave that place. So he tells me to go around, and that's pretty much what you're going to do. I want to talk a little bit further. We might actually shoot just one mutant or so to show you how it goes around. And you can see, this is my flashlight like we talked about earlier. I'm obviously going to put it off because I want to stalk around. I don't want to be found out by any of the mutants. And you can see my watch at the bottom of the screen. It's actually green right now, which means I'm very, very in shadows and not visible. Not quite visible. Now, I'm going to pick up, it's a little bit of glowiness, but you basically need to scrounge around and look for everywhere you possibly can in order to get anything that you can. There's a lot of exploration in the game. And I'm going to go around this, and remember, I'm still very hidden. That mutant is not going to see me. Now, you can go through the game very stealth-like and waste as little ammunition as you need, but you can also go guns blazing. I shot, you obviously heard it immediately. Put up my light. And now I'll have to load very quickly before it jumps on top of me. And I killed it just before it actually reached me. There was one from behind as well. Shot it in the face. Drops very, very quickly because I'm holding a shotgun. And obviously, they'll kill me very quickly if they actually reach me and start beating on me. But if I shoot them in the face, they die very quickly as well. Which is, this is on hardcore difficulty, which means that whatever happens is very meaningful. My shots are very meaningful, and I take damage quickly and die very quickly if I'm not careful. So that's just how the game goes. And I'm actually going to stop here because there's no real reason to continue too much. This is not a bullet sponge type of game. This is not an FPS where you run around and shoot everything. It's very, very different, and you have to think about it differently. Now, you saw a pretty large part where I didn't actually shoot anything. And you expect shooting, a little bit of story and cutscene shooting, a little bit of story and cutscene shootings, corridors, maybe a puzzle. That's what usually happens in FPS games. But this game has large parts where you don't really shoot anything. We just maybe skulk around areas that you could go shooting in, but maybe there's just areas that you take in the great atmosphere that's around, and you try and understand how to navigate the metro stations and maybe the outside the ruins of a city. This game isn't just a shooter. It's about the atmosphere. And it also adds a lot that everything is really Russian. It feels really nice, at least for me, that it's just, they speak with such a thick accent. It's really great. And they say the typical things that you'd expect out of Russian, which is blat when something bad happens. And it really adds to the atmosphere. Metro is a wonderful game. It has its quirks. It's not perfect in any way. It has a couple of problems here and there that we're not going to discuss too much. But you have to go into a game with less expectations. Obviously, you're going to be biased towards everything. I also have my show that's called Biased Beginnings, when we start up a game and try and think about it and compare it to others. But this isn't entirely a game, this isn't a typical FPS, and people go into this game as a typical FPS are going to be sorely disappointed. And that's why I was really sad to hear people who just drop the game very quickly because it's just not what they expect. It's a wonderful game if you know how to go into it, and there's a lot of other games that you just have to have the correct mindset into what you're going into, and sometimes you won't know. It's fine to have some sort of bias and some sort of expectations, but if it's not what you expected, you want to maybe shift your mindset. This is not a shooter where you just go guns blazing. This is a shooter where you take in the atmosphere and try and really try and go into the game. And when you do that, it's really amazing. When you try and have this as another Call of Duty, it's not going to work. So look at games the way they're supposed to be looked at. That's what I'm trying to say here in this week's Why You Should. So that's about it for me. You should definitely go play Metro 2033 and Last Light as well. I haven't actually played Last Light. I heard there's a couple of changes, but I'll see as I go into it, and I'll probably do a Biased Beginnings and an Afterthought for that game, which is sort of my way of reviewing games. So thanks a lot for watching. My name is KOKOStern again. I would very much appreciate it if you'd subscribe to this channel. And that's about it. I will see you next time. Laters. Thanks for watching.